Thank you very much, Melissa. I remember a couple of weeks ago when this talk was placed in the casino track, I reached out to Neil of Casual Connect. I said, hey, there's an accident here. I'm in the wrong track. I should be in trends and insights and talk to developers about what esports means for your game. And now it turns out that it's probably the happiest accident ever because there's a lot more overlap than I thought. And who am I? My name is Peter Warmann. I am Dutch. Actually, our office is like crawling distance away. If you crawl through the red light district, which some people do, you end up at our office. And I'm also happy to see a fraction of my company sitting here to support me. It's cool to have an event like this so close. Everything related to games. But our clients do include cool game companies like Supercell and King and Riot Games and Blizzard and EA, Xbox. 80% of our money comes from the US, 10% from China, 10% from Europe. But increasingly we serve hardware guys like NVIDIA, Intel, but also the big media people, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube. And why? That's because of this trend and everything, the trends that are related to esports, because esports is only the tip of an iceberg of bigger things that are happening that will impact everyone that works in this industry and even outside, even people like Melissa in the real money gaming business. So I hope to share some of the insights that we particularly have developed over the last 9 months when we were approached by esports, particularly esports company ESL, Turtle Entertainment in Cologne, to put some more effort in the esports space to educate the market or have hard data behind the gut feeling that this is really, really big. So we started researching it more than a year ago, wrote a big report last 6 months. I'm going to share a couple of things from that report with you. And you know, esports is about being the best gamer. It's about the best gamer in the world. And esports is about, you know, entertaining crowds, millions online, tens of thousands in a stadium. I was in San Jose in December for an esports event, and just the whole atmosphere there, it's just really like you're going to an ice hockey match or something. It's really cool. So it's about winning. So these are winners. And I initially had a slide. I'm not going to talk about betting today. And then I actually looked at what already is happening, and like Melissa said, it's already really huge. It might be one of the best kept secrets for the real money gambling and betting world. Because there's smaller companies that already are doing this. So this is a screenshot. Yesterday there was a big match of my favorite team, Unicorns of Love. It's a League of Legends team that it took about 6 months for Riot to approve their name, Unicorns of Love. I thought that must be a European team. They just made that name for fun. And yes, I met them. They're really cool. And I think it's fun just to do things differently. But they were playing Fnatic yesterday. I don't know the outcome, Peter. Do you know what happened in that match? They beat them? They beat Fnatic. And Fnatic is one of the most famous teams. Unicorns rule. And one of my colleagues pointed me to a startup that is purely focused on doing real money fantasy league type stuff around esports. So there is already a huge amount of stuff going on. And Melissa told me, and another person from the betting world, that in China, a recent big esports event, there was a couple tens of millions of dollars were spent on betting on an esports event, which is comparable to, say, the betting size that Chinese do on a good Premier League match. So is it as big as soccer? No, but it is, for a single event, it's on par with big sport events. This is a whole area that I still need to discover together with you, so I'm also looking forward to the Q&A at the end. Anybody know where this is and what this is, this image? It's from a couple months ago. Where is this? Seattle. Who said Seattle? Yeah, all points to you. It's in Seattle. It used to be only in Korea, this sort of stuff. It has suddenly, in a year time, exploded into the West. And this is not the Staples Center, but when the first event was held in the Staples Center, that's when USA Today caught on. That's when the mass media thought, oh, if they can rent the Staples Center, this must be pretty huge. This is the Seattle Seahawks Stadium, I think. The Does anybody know the game? Yeah, Dota 2, yeah, okay, cool. So this event's called the International, a game Dota 2, sort of a League of Legends type game. And what is so special about this event is they had a huge prize pool. That's cool, that's special. 10 million, so the winning team with 5 people gets 5 million. That's not so special, that's just cool, that's a lot of money. If you look at it more closely, you might remember in the time that the Dutch soccer team did not lose to Iceland, what now happens, you know. In the past, we were pretty good at soccer and we were 3rd in the World Championships. They got 23 million from the FIFA because they were 3rd in the world, which is exactly $1 million a player. These guys got the same individual reward for this. Just to put it a little bit into perspective, what's even more interesting is this, and this ties into bigger trends that are happening that I want to speak to you about today. That 10 million was not put up by Valve, the publisher. They put up 1.5 million, 2 million or something, and they offered some virtual items to people that wanted to contribute a little bit of money towards the prize pool. You could buy a digital ebook for $10, and then $2.50 of that was put into the prize pool. And they added, in this way, $8 million to the prize pool, purely by consumers. And no,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What was in the ebook?
It's like I think it was like a program guide that you would get when you go to a soccer match, so with all the team information and everything, and it would update automatically. Do you know, Peter? Did you buy it?
Yeah, no, but there was also stuff about the game. It's very good.
Yeah, and it had some virtual items that you could only get if you did that. But
And were there online qualifying tournaments to get to that level? How was the game structured in terms of the beginning?
the game structured, yet to get to, I don't know, we're at 8 teams or 6. I always look to Peter, he's Mr. eSports in a company, because I also talk about mobile and I talk about consoles and stuff. How many teams were there in the international?
I'm not exactly sure, but there's regional qualifiers. Every region has their own games and there's tournaments, point system.
Yeah, I'll just repeat that. So there's indeed qualifiers and everything, and then there's about 8 teams or something in that international. But coming back to this point, where did the other $7.5 go per contributor? That's $24 million made by Valve by holding this event. Well, I don't know what it costs to rent a Seahawks stadium, but it's not going to be $24 million. I was at Valve in December as well, and he told me they make a couple tens of millions of dollars just around this event. As a research company, that's a problem. We segment revenues made by a game like this as game revenues. Where do we put these revenues? These are generated by stuff that's happening outside of the game. How should we treat that? And that's huge. Come back to that later. And who's helping to accelerate all of that? It's Twitch, yeah. Facebook and YouTube, they missed this one. And even worse, Amazon bought them for $1 billion. Twitch is accelerating all kinds of stuff. Melissa just told me that Twitch is accelerating bringing the fun and entertainment back into poker, because there's a poker Twitch channel. So the whole video aspect around it just makes it a huge economy, you could say. And if you look at, if you call it the esports economy, there's a couple of different components there, or companies, organizations. So the publishers, so Valve, you know, they have titles that are competitive gaming titles. They can have esports going on. They are the reason why esports in the West has taken off so big in 2 years' time. Because the top titles, League of Legends, World of Tanks, Dota 2, are free-to-play games. It's not a title where you pay $60. You can spend money when you want, as much as you want. So the more time you engage with gamers, that translates into money. So the rise of esports in the West has to do with a change in business models and the increase of investment of investors, which have pushed it, say, up, and now it's on its own. Now it's flying. Well, you've got leagues, continuous leagues, and of course huge events, small events, and the teams, which are increasingly important also for sponsors. They like to have heroes, you know, Coke and Red Bull, they sponsor players and teams because they can use that in their marketing. This image is, I'm also putting it up to show that esports, just the professional stuff that is very visible, there's a huge ring around that with competitive gaming. You can set up, every title has rankings and leagues and games going on Twitch, for instance, that you can watch. So there's a huge sort of amateur competitive gaming pool around that, making it a way bigger trend than only esports, very visible stuff. And the fact that you can broadcast your competitive game to the world, and Twitch facilitates that, there's a community around it watching it, makes it, the advertising income of this business is just ridiculous. It's enormous, all because of Twitch and YouTube and stuff. And you can just look at the stats here. You probably have seen that of Twitch. They just published this. So they have 100 million viewers per month. And I think they're the 4% of the internet traffic or something now is Twitch. So that's really, really big. And they're respected by gamers. That's very important. They are present at events. They are cool people. And if you want to do something with gamers, you need to be cool. YouTube. We already knew that gaming is second to music when it comes to popularity of content. I actually expect it to go over because it is so easy and fun to create unique content with games. And so I think it will be bigger than music. And what we do is, when a trend pops up like this, we need to have data about it. Our clients expect us to have data on stuff that is important for them tomorrow. So we want to know, every month, for instance, what are the top franchises on YouTube, what's the share of consumer-generated content, paid content. And we found a cool company called Octoly. And who pointed us to Octoly? It was YouTube themselves, because we don't share any data, but if you want good data, go to Octoly, they say. That's cool about YouTube. So next week, we're going to start publishing franchise popularity on YouTube. And that's interesting to see. And for each franchise, except for Angry Birds about 23% of their own generated content, because they do sort of animated stuff. For the rest, it's all between 93 and 99% consumer generated content. Of those 20, if you add up all the views, 37% is Minecraft on YouTube. 37%. As you might know, the biggest advertising channel on YouTube has started a year and a half ago because the 3 biggest Minecraft posters joined forces and created an ad network. They're the biggest on YouTube. If you go to the YouTube head office, they've got big frames on the wall of fame, and those 3 guys are there. They each have 3 account managers, something of YouTube on their butt, because they're so important to YouTube. This is all games and video. There's an even bigger trend that impacts all digital media that also plays a role in this whole eSport and video happening. And this is taking a real step back, even in time. We're back in 2005 now. And I Googled it about people, publishing stuff and creating stuff on YouTube, creating video. When did that all start? And in 2005, there were all these publications about the prosumer. That was a new term everybody talked about. And it was 0.8% of the consumers were people that actually could make stuff that people would watch or people would do something with. That's only 10 years ago. And people were making their own blogs and stuff. The prosumer. And all the other digital media, so the professionally made, movies or games and the art and design. And when it comes to sharing, all the advertising and mail made by professionals, that was media. And now, only 10 years later, it has all come together, and there is nobody out there that doesn't create and share stuff on a digital way. My lovely wife, she said, I don't create anything digitally, I'm not digital. But if you look on how she arranges her photos on the internet, she makes this beautiful art I said, you're making art. Other people are watching you, are looking at it. Everybody is now a prosumer. It even raises the question if the term consumer still applies to people. consuming is about taking in. We're creating stuff, and other people are watching what we do. And the professionally made digital media is pushed to the side as a niche. There will always be movies, but you'll go there a couple times a year, be inspired to do stuff yourself. And how does this relate to games? I believe if you don't facilitate the desire to create and share in a game, the game will die. Minecraft allows you to, create stuff. In GTA, you can go around and with pink hair and naked, run around the desert with friends, and then make a movie of it and put it on YouTube. Competitive gaming, every battle is unique and has emotions in it, so you can broadcast that. It's all about creating experiences that you can share in a rich media way. And if your game doesn't have that in it from the start, your game will not fly in the way that you might want. So it's all about power to the people. I'm proud that when the next-gen consoles came out, Xbox One, I was so tired of American press writing about next-gen consoles that we put out a free report called PC Gaming Power to the People. Because it's PC gaming that's the innovator behind this. On the PC, you can do everything. People can create, can share. So, and now everybody is realizing that actually that report a year and a half ago, it already had esports in video. I'm proud of that. I'm not afraid to let you know. But it's all about power to the people. Who has played Trivia Crack in this room? Complete sidestep. Trivia Crack in December was the 3rd most downloaded game in the world, behind Candy Crush and one other one. It jumped 38 places. It's a trivia game. It looks like crap. Why is it successful? At this moment, they told that Pocket Gamer, they earn about 300,000 per day in consumer revenues and 300,000 per day in ad revenues. So that's about between 120, 150 million they're going for to make this year with this game. Why is that successful? They give complete power to the people. The questions are put in by consumers. The moderation of the question is done by consumers. You can have different types of gameplay that you determine how you play it with your friends. It's just sort of a platform, and they just give it to the people, and the people play with it. And why do people tell other people about the game? They don't tell, this is a cool trivia game. What they say is, do you know, they actually accepted my question about, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something, which was a crazy question. They accepted it, it's in there. Let's go and play the game and see if we can find the question we put in. There's 30 million questions in there, none of which have been put in by the publisher. Sidestep, it's just proving that power to the people is not only, has to do with esports, every game. Data, we're a research company, so I do have some data on slides, of course. And this one shows, we've modeled the esports audience, done research in 25 countries, taken in data from partners. And what's interesting to see is that you have what we call the esports enthusiasts, so people that watch at least a couple times a month, and or even participate in amateur online championships. And then there's the same amount of people, so both are about 100 million people, that watch occasionally, say once a month maximum. That group might become more enthusiastic, it might accelerate the growth. But 100 million people this year that you could call esports enthusiasts, where in sports you would call a sports fan, that's big. The takeaway above there is very interesting. 40% of those people do not play the game they're watching. They are older, they're people like me. I love games, but I don't have time, so I watch my kids play games, and I watch esports because I have become a spectator. Like I used to play basketball, and now I don't, as you can see. But I still love to watch the NBA. So it's a spectator sport. So the audience is a lot bigger than the gamers itself. So where are people sponsors in there? So there's a lot of advertising revenue on Twitch. Twitch gives a nice share to the teams and everybody who owns content. These sponsors who sponsor teams or leagues are increasingly becoming the traditional sponsors. So Coca-Cola, Red Bull, Duracell is now stepping into it. And why? Because it's a difficult to grasp demographic, and I think that's also interesting for the betting industry. These are young males, very enthusiastic about this sport, and that's probably not a demographic that normally would go to the other betting solutions that are out there. So you can see here for the hardware guys, our data can prove that there's more budget being spent, which you would expect on headsets and stuff. Surprisingly, they actually are not the unemployed people with a low education or anything. It's a higher share that have a full-time job that are involved in watching eSports or participating than you would expect. And 41% owns an iPad. Could be interesting if you're working towards mobile competitive gaming and etc. Vlad? So how will this develop? And we're trying also to be very modest, because especially we have a lot of interviews with American press, and they want to hear that it's going to be an audience of billions. That's what they want to state. And sometimes esports companies talking to investors are tempted to also inflate it a little bit. We really need to watch out to be realistic about this. So we have a healthy growth rate here towards about 150 million enthusiasts. This audience growth, interesting to see is that because it already was big in Asia, the growth rates in audience is bigger in North America and in Europe. So here you have some facts. I think this presentation will be shared, by the way. But is it comparable to sports? That's what everybody said. It's the new sport. Should be on the Olympics. We also, in this report, we put that into perspective, compare it with revenues of Bayern Munich, how many tennis sports fans there are. Turns out that you should compare gaming as a whole as sports as a whole. That works out pretty well, because it's about 2 billion people in the world that actively play games, 2 billion sports fans. And the revenues going around in the sports world, which is all B2B advertising driven, and of course some ticketing, 124 billion, this is without betting, by the way, and about 100 billion soon for games, but all spent by consumers. So it's different, but the esports economy is closer to the sports economy because the revenue streams are the same. And now the publishers still need to put in some of their own money, but it's turning out, as we saw before, to be a business on its own. It's going to make them more money than on the game itself. And we should compare esports to an individual sport. We just heard in betting it's bigger than golf. In terms of audience, it's comparable to ice hockey. In terms of fans. So game enthusiasts on the one side and sports fans. We partnered with a company, Replicom, who has all the type of data on sports that we have on games. So we had to become good friends. So will revenues also compare to ice hockey? I'm not going to speak about esports revenues too much, because we're going to announce stuff about it next week. But it's now, say, a couple 100 million, expected to double in a couple of years, without betting, that is. It will only compare to ice hockey if it is structured, having national leagues, if the sponsors increase their budget, if mainstream media picks it up. It's still a long way to go. In sports, the average revenue per fan is tens of dollars, and here it's individual dollars. Say there's a factor 10 to 20 difference there. But it will get a long way, and only future will tell what will happen. And meanwhile, I want you to remember that esports is just the tip of the iceberg. Everybody in real money gambling, this might be your biggest opportunity. And it shows you and connects a lot of the bigger trends that impact everyone in this industry. And ultimately, it is going to lead to a statement that the CEO of Wargaming made, I think at DICE 2 years ago. We should aim to be a $200 billion business, not a $100 billion business. Everybody said he was crazy, but because half of revenues in a couple of years might come not from the game, but things around it, he was right. And let's hope so, because we'll all be rich. Thank you very much. I think there's 1 minute left. Okay.
Evan, sorry, he shot his hand up first.
Very quick question, just to ask, are you able to give us an indication of the age profile of the audience?
Oh yeah, it's actually, we have a free report online where the age demographics is, but it's about, for all the viewers, it's about 30% female, so that's higher than some expect. The more active you get, of course, the female share drops to say about 15. Age, yeah, it's 20 to 35 is the biggest, as you might expect. It skews a little bit older than people expect. If you look at the active pro gamers, of course, they're very, very young. But the audience skews older because it's lapsed gamers like myself who are also in it. Yeah, but we have all the details. We can tell you which TV channels they watch. We probably can tell you which games and if they like social casino and stuff. We should talk.
Do you have a sense of what these brands are paying to be sponsors?
A sense, not really.
It's online. Just go to the league websites and they have menus with how you can sponsor and be part of the competition.
Yeah, it ranges. You know, I know teams that only get from a hardware company. They only get hardware and no money. I know sponsors that put in 100,000, and there's a couple that put in a couple millions. But that's about the range. Yeah.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
That's great. Thanks.
Cheers.